of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC 010 titled Managerial Economics for MBA Program. Presenting Block 1 titled Introduction to Managerial Economics, Unit 3 Basic Concepts and Techniques.
Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be able to identify a wide range of techniques used in managerial economics, apply the techniques to understand the meaning of the results, identify the strengths and weaknesses of the different method. Introduction. The manager needs various techniques to assist and help him in making decisions that will ultimately maximize the value of the firm. These techniques and tools are quantitative in nature. The introduction of some commonly used tools used in managerial decision making becomes imperative. In this unit, we are going to discuss some basic techniques which would be helpful in understanding the concept of managerial economics, in turn helping us to apply these techniques as and when required. Opportunity set. A set is a collection of distinct or well-defined objects like 5, 6, 7 or ABC. For example, listing of all residents of Delhi or all animals in a zoo is difficult. Thus, a set is also formed by developing a criterion for membership. For example, the set of all positive numbers between 1 and 10 or set of all points lying on the line x plus y is equals to 4. In a managerial economics, the need is to define an opportunity set of a decision maker, that is, the set of alternative actions which are feasible. For example, the opportunity set of a consumer is the set of all combinations of goods which the consumer can buy with his given income. Given the consumer's budget and prices of all goods, the opportunity set is well defined and we can find out whether the consumers can buy that combination of goods. Variables and constants. Variables are a measure which change and can take a set of possible values within a given problem. A constant or parameter is a quantity which does not change in a given problem. For example, consider y is equals to a plus bx. Here, a and b are constants and x and y are variables. X is the independent variable or exogenous variable while y is the dependent or endogenous variable. The value of x will be given from outside the system, while values of y will be determined from within the system by the equation. X can assume different values and this will cause y to assume different values also. Partial derivatives. In managerial economics, usually a function of several independent variables is encountered instead of a single variable. For example, a consumer's demand for a product depends on the price of the product, price of other related goods, income, tastes, etc. When the price changes, the effect on quantity demanded of the goods can be analyzed only when all other variables are kept constant. The functional relationship that is obtained between the quantity demanded of a product and its own price is called a partial function, a function of one variable when all other variables are kept constant. The derivatives of the partial functions are known as partial derivatives of the original function and is shown as df by dx1 or f1 bracket x or fx. The conventional symbol used in maths for the partial derivative is delta. Partial derivatives are functions of all variables entering into the original function of fx. Optimization concept. Optimization is the act of choosing the best alternative out of the available ones. It describes how decisions or choices among alternatives are taken or should be made. All such optimization problems have three elements. 1. Decision variables. These variables whose optimal values have to be determined. For example, a production manager wants to know at what level to set output in order to achieve maximum profit or maximum sales revenue. Here, output is the decision or choice variable. Similarly, labor, machine, time, and raw materials are also choice variables. If a work manager wants to know what amount of these are to be used so as to produce a given output level at minimum cost, the quantity of any choice variable must be measurable. Example, 20 kilos, 5 laborers, 10 hours, etc. 2. The objective function. It is a mathematical relationship between the choice variables and some variables whose values are to be maximized or minimized. For example, the objective function could relate profit to level of output or cost to amount of labor, machine, time, raw materials, etc. 3. The feasible set. The available set of alternatives is called a feasible set. A solution to an optimization problem is that set of values of the choice variables which is in the feasible set and which yields maximum or minimum of the objective function over the feasible set. Unconstrained optimization technique. For unconstrained optimization problem involving single independent variable, we need to satisfy some conditions. In economics, the necessary first order condition is called the equilibrium condition and sufficient second order condition is called the stability condition. There may be equilibrium, but it may not be stable. Thus, first order condition does not guarantee second order condition. Constrained optimization technique. There are many situations where the objective function has to be maximized or minimized subject to certain constraints present in the problem. Thus, a consumer may be maximizing utility subject to the income constraint. The techniques used to analyze such problems are based on that used for unconstrained problems. The constrained problem is converted into unconstrained one with the help of Lagrange multiplier technique, and then the latter is solved. In this technique, the objective function and constraint is combined in one expression, such that the constrained maximization or minimization problems are reduced to unconstrained ones. For example, maximize y is equals to minus x square plus 8x plus 20, subject to x is less than or equal to 2, function of single independent variable. The objective function to be optimized is y is equals to minus x square plus 8x plus 20 and can be plotted on a graph. When applying Lagrange technique to solve economic decision problem, lambda will have an economic significance. For example, in consumers' utility maximizing problem, where quantities of commodities are choice problems, lambda will be the marginal utility of money income. In producers' cost minimization profit, lambda will be the marginal cost of production. In complex problems, there are as many lambdas as there are constants have to be used. The problem with two independent variables can also be solved with Lagrangian technique. To find out whether the optimized value is maximum or minimum, however, requires second derivative test as well as use of some more determinants not to be discussed here. Regression analysis. A manager must often determine the total cost of producing various levels of output. The relation between total cost, C, and quantity, Q, is C is equals to A plus BQ plus CQ square plus DQ cube. In order for the cost function to be useful for decision making, the manager must know the numerical value of the parameters. The values of parameters are often obtained by using a technique called regression analysis. It determines the mathematical relation between a dependent variable and one or more explanatory variables. Dependent variable, the variable whose variation is to be explained. Explanatory variables, the variables that are thought to cause the dependent variable to take on different values. In the simple regression model, the dependent variable y is related to only one explanatory variable x, and the relation between x and y is linear. Y is equals to a plus bx. Specifying the regression equation. The first thing that the organization carrying out the regression analysis needs to do is to determine the range of variables which may affect demand for the product concerned. For example, the own price of a good might reasonably be expected to be a determinant of demand for most products, as would any advertising being done by the firm. The question of whether there are any substitute or complementary goods which need to be taken into account could then be raised. In case of an expensive consumer durable good, the cost and availability of credit might be a consideration. Any special other factors affecting demand could then be identified, and so on. This choice of variables has to be made before it is possible to progress to the next stage. Data collection. Once the relevant variables have been identified, quantitative data needs to be assembled for each of them. This will be easier for some of the variables than for others. In dealing with an established product, for example, the firm might reasonably be expected to have access to a range of information regarding the variables which it controls, such as own price and advertising. What may be more difficult to obtain, however, is information about competitors' products. On this front, price data can be obtained through observing retail prices, as this information by definition is in the public domain and cannot be hidden. This requires continued market observation, perhaps over a long period of time. Likewise, information about product design changes can be obtained by buying the competitors' products, but this may be expensive if there are many on the market. Confidential, commercially sensitive information such as actual advertising expenditure by competitors and their proposed new products present much more difficult problems in terms of access and may have to be left out of the process altogether. Data on levels of disposable income, population variables, interest rates, and credit availability are easier to obtain, for example, from government statistics, but other variables are more problematic. How can things like expectations and tastes be measured, for instance? In these cases, the available data, perhaps resulting from market surveys, may be qualitative rather than quantitative. Some means of conversion needs to be found if they are to be included in the regression analysis at all. There are things which the decision maker needs to keep in mind while collecting and selecting data on the relevant variables. Once the first two steps have been completed, the next stage is to specify the likely form of the regression equation. There are two main forms which are used in practice, the linear demand function and the nonlinear or power function. Both treat the demand for the product as the dependent variable, while the independent variables are those which have previously been identified as having an effect on demand. If, for example, the firm had decided that the only variables affecting demand for a particular product with its own price and advertising levels, then the linear demand function would be written as Q is equals to A plus BP plus CA. Alternatively, under these conditions, the exponential power function would be written as Q is equals to A B to the power B C A to the power A. In each case, the A term represents the intercept of the line drawn from the equation with the vertical axis. The B and C terms represent the regression coefficients with respect to own price and advertising respectively. These show the impact of each of these variables on product demand. Once they have been estimated, it is possible to predict the level of demand for any set of values of the independent variables simply by substituting them into the equation. The exponential form of the equation has the advantage that it can be rewritten to give direct estimates of the respective elasticities of demand for the independent variables. This is done by taking the log linear form of the equation, which in this case would be log Q is equals to log A plus B log B plus C log A, where B and C are the own price and advertising elasticities of demand respectively. This is a much easier approach than calculating elasticities through use of the linear form, which involves using the equation ED is equals to B into PD divided by QD to calculate the elasticities in each case. In this case, values of P and Q need to be obtained from the data set. Usually, average values are substituted in the above equation to estimate elasticities. Estimating the regression equation. Consider a firm with a fixed capital stock that has been rented under a long-term lease for 100 rupees per production period. The other input in the firm's production process is labor, which can be increased or decreased quickly depending on the firm's need. In this case, the cost of the capital input, which is 100 rupees, is fixed and the cost of labor is variable. The manager of the firm wants to know the relationship between output and cost, that is, the firm's total cost function. This would allow the manager to predict the cost of any specified rate of output for the next production period. Specifically, the manager is interested in estimating the coefficients A and B of the function y is equals to A plus bx, where the dependent variable y is the total cost and the independent variable x is the total output. If this function is plotted on a graph, the parameter A would be the vertical intercept, bracket, that is, the point where the function intersects the vertical axis, bracket closed, and B would be the slope of the function. Recall that the slope of a total function is the marginal function, as y is equals to A plus bx is the total cost function. The slope B is marginal cost or the change in total cost by unit change in output. Decision under risk. The focus of this section is decision making under risk. The objective will be to develop guidelines for making rational decisions given the decision maker's attitude towards risk. Attitudes toward risk may be of three types. A risk seeker is one who prefers risk. Given a choice between more or less risky investments with identical expected money returns, he will select the riskier investment. B. A risk averter is one who, faced with the same situation, will select the less risky investment. C. A risk neutral person is one who, faced with the same situation, will be indifferent to the choice. For him, any investment is equally preferable to the other. It is difficult to slot people in one of these categories. You would perhaps have observed both risk-averse and risk-seeking behavior in the real world. The analysis of risk is based largely on the concepts of probability and probability distribution that are commonly encountered in elementary statistics. First, the terms strategy, states of nature, and outcomes need to be defined. A strategy is one of the many alternative plans or courses of action that could be implemented in order to achieve managerial goal. A manager might be considering 3 strategies to increase profits: build a more modern plant which may produce at low cost, implement a new marketing program to increase sales, or change the design of product to decrease cost and increase sales. A state of nature is a condition that may exist in the future and that will have a significant effect on the success of a strategy. For example, the manager may not be aware of the economic conditions in the future. The possible states of nature may be normal, recession, or boom. The outcome results in either gain or loss based on a particular combination of strategy and state of nature. The decision maker has no control over the states of nature that will prevail in future, but the future states of nature will certainly affect the outcome of any strategy that he or she may adopt. The particular decision made will depend, therefore, on the decision maker's knowledge or estimation of how a particular future state of nature will affect the outcome of each particular strategy. Having defined risk and reviewed some of the related terminology, the task now is to develop quantitative measures of return and risk and to show how they are applied in decision making. We know that individuals have different preferences concerning risk taking. It is also important that such preferences be identified and their effect on decisions evaluated. Rational decision making requires that the expected return be determined and the risk be measured and that there be information about the manager's preference for the risk. The expected value, the standard deviation, and the coefficient of variation will be referred to as risk returns evaluation statistics. Decision tree. Some strategic decisions are based on a sequence of decisions, states of nature, and possibly even strategic decisions. Alternative strategies can be evaluated then by using a decision tree, which traces sequences of strategies and states of nature to arrive at a set of outcomes. The probability of each outcome is found by multiplying the probabilities on each branch leading to that outcome. A decision tree shows two or more branches at each point where a decision or event leads to the various outcomes. The decision tree approach can be directly applied to managerial decision making. A firm entering a new market may decide to build a small or large plant. This has no probabilities, but there may be stochastic elements, an outcome determined by chance associated with each decision. Example, reaction of a major competitor and the economic condition. The competitor may react by starting a national, regional, or a new advertising program. The probability of each occurrence will depend on the size of the plant. The possible economic conditions and then probabilities may be recession, normal, or boom. Here, also the probability will depend on the size of the plant. The probability of each combination is found by multiplying the probability along each of the branches leading to the outcome. Uncertainty analysis and decision making. Certainty appears to be a theoretical and impractical state, as here the investor has perfect knowledge of the investment environment such that he is definite about the size, regularity, and periodicity of flow of returns. Such situations may exist in the short term. Example, fixed deposit in a nationalized bank. However, long-run or long-range investments are not predictable as they are influenced by many kinds of change taking place with time, political, economic, market and technology, etc. Risk is more common in the real world. A situation with more than one possible outcome to a decision such that the probability of each of these outcomes can be measured is a risk situation. For example, tossing of a coin, that is 50-50, or investing in a stock. The greater the number and range of outcomes, the greater is the risk associated with the decision or action. Uncertainty is a situation where there is more than one possible outcome to a decision, but the probability of each specific outcome occurring is not known or even meaningful. This may be due to insufficient information or instability in the nature of variables. In extreme cases of uncertainty, the outcomes may itself be not clear. Decision making under uncertainty is necessarily subjective. Role of managerial economist. In general, managerial economics can be used by the goal-oriented manager in two ways. First, given an existing economic environment, the principles of managerial economics provide a framework for evaluating whether resources are being allocated efficiently within a firm. For example, economics can help the manager if profit could be increased by reallocating labor from a market activity to the production line. Second, these principles help the manager to respond to various economic signals. For example, given an increase in the price of output or the development of a new lower-cost production technology, the appropriate managerial response would be to increase output. Alternatively, an increase in the price of one input, say labor, may be signaled to substitute other inputs such as capital for labor in the production process. Thus, the working knowledge of the principles of managerial economics can increase the value of both the firm and the manager. Summary. Various quantitative tools are used by the manager to help him in making decisions. An opportunity set is a set of alternative actions which are feasible. Variables are things which can change and can take a set of possible values within a given problem. A function shows the relation between two variables. It can take different forms: linear, quadratic, cubic. Partial derivatives are functions of all variables entering into the original function f(x). Optimization is the act of choosing the best alternative out of all available ones. Regression analysis helps to determine values of the parameters of a function. Economic analysis of risk becomes crucial with reference to decisions.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC 010, titled Managerial Economics. Course coordinator Dr. Leena Singh. Voiceover by Renuka. Edited by Savita. Program assisted by Tarannum Jahan. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.